101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest, and she is my award-winning and best-selling author of the month of April, no other than Miss Marcy Pusey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome back, Miss Marcy, and thank you so much for being part of Book 101 Review, and thank you for being my feature author of the month of April. And what we gonna talk about today?
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Yes.
Once upon a
And
time, God is faithful.
can you tell us the writing process of this inspiring book?
Yeah. So it's actually a combination of 20 different women who wrote their individual stories as a chapter inside of this book. I'm one of those authors, but I also got to publish the book. I know the woman whose main idea it was is Cindy Pine, and she had come to me and said, "Man, I really want to tell my story, and I'd love to gather other women to do that. Could you help us? And could you help me publish the book?" And I hadn't. I'm over here looking at it. That's why I'm looking off. I'm like, um, I hadn't planned to write in it as well, but she was insistent, and I did. And so they were women who felt they had a story about God's faithfulness in their lives and wanted to share it, and many of them for the very first time. And so it's a very brave and bold and honest but faith-filled book, full of multiple stories of women who are sharing what God has done in their lives.
Were there any stories that were especially emotional or challenging to include?
Yeah, I mean, the gift that I had in publishing it was that I was the editor as well, and so I got to be steeped in each and every story. And many of these women I know personally in some capacity, not all of them. And so it's hard to choose one that might be the case. And so I'm going to be a little biased and choose my sister's story because she included a chapter. She's never done anything like that before. And the story that she writes in here, we called How Did I Get Here? And her name is Laura Duro. So I'll say that. So if you come and look at the book, you'll recognize which one is hers. We have different last names. But
Yes.
one day we were sharing lunch, maybe after church. We were eating tacos, and out of the blue, she tells me this story that I did not know had happened to her in her life. And we're both like crying over our tacos because it was about a child that she lost that I had never known about. And I had miscarried a child and all around the same time. And so she was like, "I've never even planned on telling you that. It just came out over tacos." And so I'm immediately like, "Laura, this is such an incredible story, and I know you've never told a single person, but would you write it for this book? Would you now tell everybody?"
Yes.
And she did. And and so I'm just so proud of her. And then of course it still makes me cry to read because every story of God's faithfulness or of transformation in the world is contrasted with some kind of pain, right? Or struggle or something where we needed to see that God is faithful. And so that's her story. That's every story in here is finding ourselves in situations we didn't expect to be in, sometimes that leading to ongoing shame and guilt or embarrassment, or whatever it might be, judgment, self judgment, fear of judgment. And so getting to journey with her as she wrote her story and having such an intimate relationship with her as my sister, and then getting to also be her editor and her publisher as she told her chapter was just a really unique and incredible opportunity. So that's the one I'm highlighting right now.
Miss Marcy Pusey, thank you so much for inspiring us, giving us more faith. How has your faith, or how has your own faith journey shaped the writing of this book?
Yeah. Well, as a Christian, as a believer myself, I can only tell my story ever, right? I can only tell the life experiences that I've had, and those are my responsibility to tell. There's a verse in the Bible that I call back on regularly, Psalm 107:2, that says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story." And so I see it as a calling that we have to share in some capacity. It doesn't have to be that everybody publishes a book, but in some capacity, people are sharing their stories. And so I can only steward the stories I've been given. So to be able to come alongside other people who are telling their stories, which I can't tell. I cannot tell their stories, but I can give them an outlet or a platform to tell their stories. I can help them craft that story into the best version of itself. I can help them tell the world, like we're doing here, right? That the
Yes.
book exists with their stories in it, but I can't actually tell their stories. And so in shaping my own, I guess my faith is shaped in two parts. Like one, um, getting to tell my story of God's faithfulness, or one of many in this, just puts me in a crowd of wonderful witnesses, right? Who are sharing,
Yes.
testifying to what God has done for them. But then as I'm sitting in each story, editing it and working with each author, I'm inspired and strengthened by the stories that they share and the things they've overcome. There's one author in particular, Beth Hinderocker is one of the authors. And there was one night where I was working on her edit, and it's just one miracle after another in her life, and incredible, like life-saving miracles, many of them. And it's just, they're so incredible. And I was working on hers before bed, and so as I finished and prepared to go to sleep, I could feel in my body, in my mind, in my spirit, like how encouraged and inspired I was just by working on her story. And so it was a really special time to be getting so to be spending so much time in each of their stories the way that I did, um, because I just like soaked up the things that God did for them as I was publishing their books, which was a unique opportunity. So absolutely, I think that just further strengthened. There's another verse that says, "Our iron sharpens iron," and that we are like
Yes.
that for each other. And so I felt sharpened by participating and witnessing their stories as they told them, um, both as a fellow collaborating author, but also as the person who got to edit and publish their stories.
Let's empower Christian together, and
Yes.
let's empower our faith. How did you balance storytelling with a spiritual reflection in the book?
Yeah. Well, you know what? This is a great question because what I find is that it matters. I mean,
Yes.
balancing the storytelling. So but they don't separate, right? And this is sometimes, maybe, mm, if I've heard this, right, that like a woman's brain is like like spaghetti, and a man's brain is like a waffle with all the little compartments, right? It's
Yes.
like this is do, 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 and a woman's brain is just like psh, it's all just all mixed together. So I want to say that maybe in some ways it's easier for me, or for us, some of us, to integrate those things more easily because our brains are like spaghetti. You can't pull spirit apart from physical, apart from parenting, apart from partnering, whatever it might be. It's all connected for us. And I know this is a huge generality, so I am not intending to exclude any man who's got more of a spaghetti brain, or women with a waffle brain, or whatever it is. So I
Yes.
guess all of that to say, I think the balance, for me, comes kind of easily because they're not separated. I don't have to think about, okay, make sure I'm integrating enough faith, or make sure I'm integrating it. They're all connected. They're all part of each other. And so I don't have to think too deeply about it. What I am thinking is, are the stories we are telling told in such a way that we are impacting the brain of somebody else in a really positive way? And so that's where my background in psychology and therapy comes in very handy, as I understand to a degree how the brain responds to story and the incredible impact that we have on somebody's actual neurology when we share stories. And this can be books, again, it can be movies, it can be music. There's so many ways that we receive story, and the impact is physiological. It's really incredible. So I think that more of my work in helping with these was making sure that we've got a good balance of the story elements that really light up somebody's brain and causes them to experience our story as they read it in a way that leads them with more resilience, with more faith, with inspiration, with more hope. And so some of those elements are really balancing the conflict and the obstacles with the hope and the overcoming. So if somebody gave me a story and it was really just only hard until the very end, like, and then it was okay, I would change that or work with it so that it's more of a roller coaster. We're not low too long, we're not high too long. We're giving the experience of sometimes things are hard and then there's hope. And then sometimes things are hard and then there's always hope. And so I think that's probably more the balancing act that I had to do with their stories, was making sure those elements were there in such a way that we could make a true positive impact on someone's brain. I nerd out on that. So
Yes, indeed. Miss Marcy, what advice would you give to women going through their own spiritual struggles?
yeah. This Easter Sunday, which as of our recording was just a couple days ago, um,
Yes.
really had me reflecting on that again. I mean, this is my 44th Easter or however many Easters I've been alive. So it's not a new story, but I found myself relating to it again a little bit differently because I don't know about in your life and your friendships, but in my life and my friendships and right now there's so many hard things happening for people. My dad has been in the hospital for a couple of months, then he was in rehab, now he's back in the hospital for, failing organs. It's a big deal. Another loved one of mine relapsed in his addiction and is back in addiction rehab. I have uh, just so much. There's just so many things, right? I've got some legal things that I'm facing, and so it's easy to feel stuck or fearful or even hopeless a little bit. And I found myself this Easter thinking about how when Mary, for example, goes to the empty tomb Sunday morning. She goes to visit and the tomb is empty. And we think of that now as a really great, we celebrate that. We're like, yeah, our God's not dead. He's not in the tomb, right? But I just couldn't help but wonder that morning if when she got to the tomb and there was nothing in it, if it just felt like he left us. Like, where'd he go? Not only is he dead, which we never thought would happen, but now he's also gone. Like he left and we're alone to figure this out. And all the confusion was that what did we were we duped? And it doesn't last very long because Jesus meets her in the garden, or the gardener, that she doesn't recognize as him at first, calls her name and then she recognizes it's him. And I just thought, gosh, that space in between knowing that he's never left and that his plans are good and seeing an empty tomb or a dead Messiah on a cross, those moments happen in life all the time. And I know the potential for them to happen in my life as well. That we could, just with what we see, we can make up a story about it. I see an empty tomb. That means I was duped. I believed a lie. God's not real. Or if he is, he doesn't love me. Why did hard things happen? Therefore, I don't want to serve a God if he lets hard things happen. Right? There's all these stories. And yet when Jesus comes in the garden and says her name, she has eyes to see and recognize him. And shortly after, right, everybody gets to see him. I mean, so many witness him being alive and ever present in times of trouble, which is what the word says. And so, to anyone who's struggling in their faith, that would be my encouragement, just to know that with what you see, it's so tempting to make up a story about what it means. If there's bad in the world, then God is bad. If I'm struggling, then God doesn't love me. And yet, he let Jesus struggle and die because there was a plan that was for our good, that ends up allowing us to have a personal relationship with him, an intimate relationship with him. And because Jesus didn't stay dead, right, that the act of that, the purpose of that was fulfilled, but we couldn't see it. They couldn't see it. And that is true in our lives too. So if you're in a season of struggle and you've got questions and you're trying to understand, how could God let this happen? Where is he? Does he love me? The answer is yes, he does love you. And how does he let things happen? We don't deserve him to ever intervene. We live on a fallen planet full of rebellion against him and his
Yes.
leadership in our lives, his fatherhood in our lives, his friendship. And the fact that he ever intervenes is an act of mercy and an act of grace. And so it's not that he's just around letting struggle happen. It's that we as a race chose struggle. And he steps into that struggle and says, I will never leave you alone. I will walk you through it. I will even find good here and allow there and find good, allow there to be good in this story in some way. And unless we're willing to see that, we can miss it. And so I think that's such an example, coming back to our book, right, of all of these women had an opportunity to see a hardship as God's abandonment or faithlessness, but because they hung on, even if it was by the tiniest thread, they got to see the other side of it where God did something redeeming and beautiful. You know, we've got that verse too about how he brings beauty from ashes. Like sometimes things burn down, but it's in those very ashes that finally we have the right soil to see something new grow and bloom from it. And I know I've got those stories in my life, and I would just encourage anyone struggling to know that what you see and the story you attach to it isn't necessarily the truth. What we have is God's word, which says he will never leave you or forsake you, and that he will bring about the good in all things for those who are called according to his purposes. And if you're following Jesus, you're called according to his purpose, then that word is going to be true in your life. And so hang on to that and be able to separate who God is from how people are. So if a Christian person has hurt you or a Christian institution has hurt you, that is not God hurting you. That is those people who are poorly representing him because they're human as well. And so just keep those separate and hang on. That's what I would say. I know it's a long answer, but I obviously feel deeply for those people because we've all been there, I think.
Yes, indeed. Such empowering answer and inspiring. Miss Marcy, truly remarkable.
Thank
And
you.
uh, people, God's plan is better than you are planning. So stick to it. Just have
Yes.
faith in
Yeah.
God. Just have faith
Yeah.
in God. So, Miss Marcy, if God could write a short message to each woman in the book, what would it say?
Hmm. It would say, you are not alone. You were never alone, and you will never be alone. That's probably it. I mean, I guess the rest that comes to mind is because I see you and I know you and I love you.
Yes. God so loved the world. John 3:16 itself. Do you plan to write a follow-up or continue sharing more transformational stories?
Yes. Yes, I can't not. It's in my DNA,
DNA.
to both tell stories and to amplify other voices. I mean, I have some authors in this book who, even technology-wise, couldn't figure out how to send me an email with their chapter. So one person mailed it to me on paper. Um, and so the fact that I could bring my even tech skill alongside these people who had a story to tell, who otherwise would have really, really struggled to ever get it into something others could read, is such a gift to me. And so to do that in an ongoing way with my own stories, but also creating a space and an opportunity for other people to tell theirs, is what I feel called to do. So the next book that we're thinking about doing with this same the author who coordinated this group, Cindy Pine, would like to do a follow-up book written by a group of people, men or women, who are children of pastors. and to create a space for them to share their stories, the hard, the beautiful, but to be able to come together and connect around that unique experience they had being raised in pastoral homes.
Miss Cheryl said, "Thank you very much, Mercy. They are watching right now. Thank
Good.
you
Well, I wonder if
so
it's
much."
our Cheryl. We've got Cheryl, who's an author in this book as well. I told them that I'd be talking about the book and they could come join us. So, yeah, Cheryl's got her story in here. Um,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes,
so
thank
many
you so
incredible.
much. Thank you so much for watching. So, what
Yes.
do you think is the most powerful element of storytelling in faith-based books?
The most powerful storytelling element. It's two parts. We need both. So that would be we have to share the hard part of our story to contrast it with why the good matters so much, why the faithfulness of God matters so much. If I just go around sharing God is good, God is faithful, it's still very true. But people might just start to label me as someone who just thinks that blindly or um, whatever, right? They might just label that something because they don't have anything to compare it with. They might even think, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say you've never gone through anything hard. But when I share with you that my mother in law was murdered by my father in law a few days before my first anniversary while we were sleeping in the same house, and that I had to wake up into a murder and navigate life on the front page news for the next 3 years, plus the forever absence of a grandmother to my kids and their grandfather. And then I say, but God is faithful and he is good. That carries a very different kind of weight when you realize that I'm saying that from a place of incredible tragedy and shock and pain and sadness, right? That's just one example. And so I think sometimes people are afraid to share the harder part of their stories because they don't want to sound like they're trauma dumping or that they're complaining and grumbling. They just really want to be able to focus on the goodness of God. And that's yeah, because that feels really good. That is the anchor of our soul. Like we hang on through hard things because he's good. But we have to be able to share the lessons through which that has really, really mattered. Right. So for some of these women, they left abusive relationships. So some of them have to talk about what that was like, how they reached a point of wondering if they would survive or their loved ones would survive or what would happen to them to get to where they said, man, God is faithful. And so I think those two story elements, both the telling of the hard thing, but also the telling of the redemption, of the restoration, of the hope that got them through it, is equally as important. Otherwise, it is just trauma dumping. We've got to take people on a journey, and both of those parts of the journey are crucial for somebody to both feel the depth of our proclamation that God is faithful, but also
Yes.
not just stay stuck in, oh man, they've had a really hard life. Like, how are they alive? Well, I'm telling you, because God is faithful. That's how I'm alive.
Yes, people, God is faithful, even we are not faithful to Him.
Even yeah.
Miss Kelly says, "Love you so much."
Yeah, Kelly's one of our authors as well. Yay, thanks for showing up, ladies. We got you.
Yes,
Go support
thank
these
you
women
so
as
much.
they tell their stories.
Yes, thank you so much for empowering women all over the world. So,
Yeah.
Ms. Marcy, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract
Look at
poetry in
that.
second season, book 101 review for sure fifth season, comedy 101 in second season, and of course, food 101 in its fifth season too as well. Geography 101 and Love Letters in its third season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health
Yes.
101, is in its first season, and Movie 101 and Music 101 in its fourth season. And coming soon, Bible Verse 101
Aw.
with Ms. Marcy Pusey. And let's materialize that coming soon. So please tune in. Book 101, ano,
Yeah.
Bible verse 101. So,
Love.
Miss Marcy, how can readers support or connect with women in the book? or your
Yes.
broader mission?
Yeah. So any of the women who are here live, you're welcome to drop links. This book is available wherever books are sold. So you can definitely find it on Amazon. You can walk into a Barnes and Noble and order it if it's not on the shelf. You can order it through some of these authors directly, whatever you would like to do. I think you've got the Amazon, yeah, the Amazon version pulled up there. So go grab a copy. When you buy it on Amazon, that royalty gets split between the various authors, and so that's a great way to support the entire group of them. If you go through an individual page, if for some reason you find where one of the authors is selling them that way, then you'll be supporting that specific author, which is wonderful too. They've all poured in time and energy and blood, sweat, tears, finances into making this happen. So yeah, grab their book and share it with people. We've heard incredible stories in some of their lives, in some of their own personal lives. Like one of them shared that her husband read her chapter and he then like came to Christ. He wasn't a believer, but he read her
Yes.
chapter, and then I don't know if he went through the other stories as well, but he read it and was like, I want to
Thank
follow Jesus.
God.
So if
Yes.
there's somebody that you love in your life who is struggling, who just needs to know that God is good and you can go through hard things and God be good, share this book with them. It's really wonderful. And then as far as a broader mission, I mean, you can find me on Instagram at Marcy Marie. You can go to my press website, which is miramarepontepress.com. And there's a tab there called Shop where I give away a number of free guides, as well as there's other things that are for sale as you scroll down. But I've got a free publishing guide for anyone who's looking at what are the steps that I would take to publish my story. I also have a free strategy call. So if you're somebody who's listening and, man, I want Marcy to help me get my story out, then you can hop on a free call with me and we can talk about what that looks like. If you are the child of a pastor and you said, "Ooh, I heard about this next, but I would love to be a contributing author on that book," reach out. Just feel free to let me know. I'm responsive. Um, and yeah, those are a great way to connect with my broader mission. Is
Ms. Marcy Pusey, thank you so much for empowering women all over the world and looking for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
yes. Yeah, so to all of our listeners, you can grab all my books. This
Yes,
one included. You'll
please.
find this one on my website as well. I write for children and adults, and they're available again where books are sold. And then Daniel, just thank you for offering your platform in so many different themes and topics to elevate voices and get messages out there. I'm so appreciative of the work you do, and so thank you for having me on, and look forward to future connections.
Likewise, tune in for our Bible Verse 101.
Yes.
People coming soon. Let's empower Christian all over the world. And again, Miss Marcy, thank you so much for being my feature author of the month of April. And please tune in for my feature author of the month of May. He is award winning and best selling author too. So
Yay.
please support Book 101 review. So, Miss Marcy,
Mhm.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Likewise. Bye, everyone.
Modicon people, see you soon.